Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Blokes podcast. Ryan Hassan from the Centre for Healing here. Some would call me a fashion icon. I don't know. Make that decision for yourself. But look at my hat and my shoes if you're watching on YouTube. Joined as always by Nick, not fashion icon. I don't know. I don't know. Pretty drab dresser, I would say. The DD, Nick the DD, Sultan of Steel Miracle of McRae Sutherland. Nico, how are you, mate?
I'm great, thanks, mate.
Likes to dress like it's 1936.
I'm, I'm honoured to be in the presence of such greatness. It's truly an honour and a privilege. So thank
Yeah, a
you.
humble one at that.
Extremely humble, and it's going to lead into our topic for the day. But uh,
Fashion.
no, I'm feeling very fascinated with the world at the moment. I'm just
Oh,
finding everything fascinating, and I'm really just sitting in that space and being the observer or the witness, and it's just uh, um had a drive to work. We laugh about the Sultan of Steel, and it's been coming up that um phrases like "take your time." It's quite literal. You've got to take the time that you've got and then choose how to spend it. But a lot of people aren't present, or they're trying to save time by taking a shortcut. So I'm fascinated by our relationship with time and whether people are understanding that they have a responsibility, I guess, to spend their time wisely or not. They can just spend it frivolously as well.
yeah, what a lovely state to be in. Fascinating. We've said on the podcast before that it's good to have this attitude of, saying like, well, isn't that interesting? Whether we deem something as good or bad or whatever it is, just saying, isn't that interesting? But I think fascinating is an even better word. Isn't that fascinating what's happened?
Because there's no judgment in it. I'm not saying people should be present to spend their time wisely. I'm just like it's all available, and it's about where you are in relation to everything, and do you know where you are in relation to
Well,
everything. So
well, we all have the same amount of hours in a day, and sometimes I guess we can experience time in a different way. Sometimes we feel like time's going fast or slow, but time's just doing its thing. It's doing its thing, and we don't know when the end is going to come, but on a day-to-day basis, we have the same amount of time. And you're right, we to a large, I think more than we think, we get to choose what we do with that time.
oh, totally. And we play around with the Sultan of Steel, but when you sit there, when you slow down, it feels like you have much more time. And I think that's what I'm fascinated about as well. We're getting to that time of year and everyone's like, oh, it's nearly Christmas. Can you believe it's Christmas already? And I'm like, yeah, I can. And I just feel I'm very innate and present. And I'm just seeing these people rushing all around me. I had this really fascinating, again, drive on the way to work today. Something so simple. We're driving up the freeway and I'm in the right hand lane doing 100, and I'm coming up to the turn off to come to Mornington, and I've got to get in the left lane. And a lot of people in the left lane are doing sort of 80, 90 kilometers an hour. And so I had a decision. I could choose to speed up and to get in front of them all, or I could slow down and just drift in and spend a kilometer, 2 kilometers just going at their pace. And I chose the latter. So I chose just to slow down and drift in the lane. I saw all these people rushing past me. Um,
That would be
and
me,
then
one
they
of
were
them.
and then they were diving in, jamming their way in. Uh, and then I'm like, oh, it's just so nice just to not rush. We have an abundance of time. And I think people who are rushing are in this sense of deficiency. I don't have enough time. But as you said, we all have the same amount of time. It's just how much you're trying to jam into it. Um, but then I got the turn off and I was going up Mount Martha and come up to some traffic lights and they turned orange. And my ego slammed on the accelerator and shot through. And I'm like, I didn't choose that. Like I was like, why aren't I just slowing down and sit? And it was like it was a fascinating experience because it's like we don't like stopping. We don't like being stuck or trapped. We prefer just to shoot through.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to talk about my holiday, and this leads into it pretty well. But regular listeners of the show, last episode I was in Bali,
I
and
don't
so
really
we
want
were
to
there.
hear about it, to be honest.
It ties into, what we're talking about.
You can't just turn up and take over. You do nothing all
What's
year,
what you
and then
do
you
every
just
week.
decide someone has to.
Do nothing all year.
I'm sorry I couldn't get to. I'm sorry I couldn't get to the retreat either. The plane tickets didn't turn up. I know
Yeah, it must have gone to
you
the wrong
des-
address.
I know you desperately wanted me there to run meditation for all the attendees, but it just I couldn't
Everyone was
find it.
asking, and everyone
Oh,
complained at the end of it. So there's a real lack of Nick Sutherland at this event.
yeah, yeah.
And then and then I, this is another story about the podcast. I don't know if I told you this, but we host our support calls for practitioners and that kind of thing. And I'm a bit like a couple of like I met on the retreat these ladies, and I just started talking, and one of them looked at me and goes, "You're much less serious than I thought you'd be." And I'm like, I'm actually quite silly the vast majority of the time. If I'm talking to practitioners, about trauma or healing or something like that, I tend to be a bit more serious. And we had our support call a few weeks ago, and everyone jumps on the call. We got about, I don't know, 30 people on there or whatever. And I always wait a few minutes before I press record and we jump into it. And we've got this guy, David, a lovely guy, and he's actually quite a well-known spiritual teacher in Canada, and he's written these books and everything, and he's a lovely guy. But we're just sort of chatting. I'm saying hi to everyone. And he's like, "Oh, listen to your podcast." And this is just after we did the bloody X-rated episode.
R-rated.
And he's like, "Yeah, listen to your podcast." I'm like, "Oh, what one's that?" He goes, "Oh, the one." I'm like, "What, Blokes?" He goes, "Yeah, that's it. Yeah." "Oh, just the most recent episode." He goes, "Yeah, very interesting, very fun." And then all these other people from around the world are like, "Oh, what is it? What's the show?" I'm like, "Oh, look, just to let you know, we speak about deep philosophy, mental health, and me and Nick are pracs, but we get a little bit silly, on the show, and
It can end up in the gutter real quick.
really quick.
Well, shout out to David and all the Centre for Healing
Yeah,
practitioners, and thanks for tuning in and not filing a complaint against us.
yet
Appreciate it. Yes,
it's
I
only
won't jump.
fresh.
I won't
Um,
jump to that conclusion.
yeah, and so just for you,
Just to hang on,
Mhm.
just to finish off my little drive to work. So shot through. I get to Mornington, and I'm sitting at some other traffic lights. I'm like, oh, this is nicer instead of that rush adrenaline. And I'm sitting there, and it was this wonderful contrast, rushing through the other traffic lights and then sitting at these traffic lights. I noticed the dude at the front of the traffic lights waving at someone else. And it was this great exchange between two tradies in trucks. That, oh, hey. And then, and I was just smiling. I just noticed I was smiling at that. What a wonderful exchange. And you would have missed it if you weren't present in the moment. But then as the lights changed and went forward, there was a guy over the other side, sort of similar to me, but on the other side, and he was smiling. And then we noticed each other smiling and to start smiling even more. And it was just this, if you're rushing and you're so hectic and cortisol, adrenaline, and all that sort of stuff, you miss those really beautiful little moments. And they're so enriching, they're so nourishing.
Yeah, well, what do they say? At the end of it all, you realize the little things were actually the big things. And it's those little
Yeah.
moments of connection like that. And what you're talking about here is, in listeners, we speak about being the witness and everything. And so when you're watching your own experience of being a human being and you're not so much caught up in the, momentum of life, then you can have that experience like Nick, where you have one set of lights rushing, trying to get somewhere really fast, another set of traffic lights where you're present and have those moments. And then you can look at that and go, hang on, how do I want to live? I've just experienced two really different extremes in the same trip in traffic. How do I want to live my life? You can do it if you're talking to your kids or your partner and you're a bit cunty, for lack of a better word. And then later on, you're really compassionate and loving. And then if you're watching your experience, you can later on go, hang on, how is it that I want to live my life and live my relationships? But you don't get choice if you're not watching.
It's summarized by I've been listening to this bloke called Ram Dass.
Oh,
Lately,
that's new. Yeah, you're just getting into that,
yeah.
yeah.
It's funny. I was sitting here going, I've been consuming a lot of Ram Dass and grunge music lately, so I've got this real balanced diet. And it's so true. You are what you eat. And we obviously have this mental diet. We're consuming information. So yeah, I think I'm just finding everything fascinating because I have been very consistent with my Ram Dass listening lately. And yeah, he's in this episode 89, The Edge of Mystery, at timestamp 21:31 for people who want to catch it. Um, he speaks exactly of that, and I want to play it. I might play it at the end of
Okay.
this. I'll stick on the microphone or something because it's just something else I'm fascinated about is that I deeply believe in reincarnation now because listening to so much Ram Dass, and I'm like, oh, that's what I do. And that's what I'm. He talks about sitting there noticing the stream of thought, and the thoughts is just like fish in the river, and you're just sitting on the bank just observing it. I remember 10, 12 years ago saying that exact same thing to a client, and I'd never heard of Ram Dass or never heard of mindfulness or all that sort of stuff at the time, and all these fun little things just pop up, and you're like, oh, I must have known it before somewhere, somehow, in another time or era. So anyway, yeah. So that cultivating the witness, just noticing, being that observer who is objective, not bringing your biases and prejudices and beliefs and values to the scenario. It's just so fun. It's just fun. So much fun.
It's just a way better way of being, I think. And yeah, I think the slowing down thing, I'm someone who struggles to slow down a bit, and I was able to on the holiday, which was great, probably because um, there wasn't much for me to do in the area we were staying. I don't know if Melissa set that up by design, but good on her. Well, I played golf on one day, but apart from that, there was nothing for me. I wasn't nothing that I'm interested in sort of going on. So I was sort of doing whatever Tommy wanted to do. But outside of that, I was just slowing down and just sort of sitting around, lounging around. And I felt like, that was really good for me as well.
Ram Dass in that episode says, "Don't just sit. Don't just don't do nothing. Just sit there. Don't do nothing. Just sit there." Because a
Mhm.
lot of people think sitting there is doing nothing, and being still is doing nothing, and being the witness or observing or noticing is doing nothing. But it's couldn't be further from the truth. So it's don't do nothing. Just sit there. Just sit and observe and just take it all in. And yeah, I'm
We,
glad you
we,
had the opportunity to
we,
slow down.
we,
That
we
hopefully,
had that when we were living on the beach here in Frankston, and we had the beach box, and especially when the weather was okay, we'd be down there every night. And I remember, yeah, me and Tommy, and he'd be like three or something, and we'd just be sitting there. And like you said, it's like you sit there. It's not. It sounds so passive, but it's not just because you're not, jumping around
it's
doing 10
very
things.
active.
It's
You're very
active because
active in it.
the human nature is one of curiosity and inquisitiveness and wanting to understand things. And we'd be sitting there doing nothing in air quotes, or sitting there, as Ram Dass would say. Then all of a sudden, Tommy's like, "Oh, what's that bug down there?" I'm like, "I don't know." And we'd be down there looking at this bug and trying to work out where it was going. And then someone would walk past and would say hi and play with their dog. And it's like these things happen, I guess, from that place of stillness.
It's just sitting there, and as you sit there, it all just starts unfolding, and it all arrives. It's all going to arrive. I don't know why we're in such a rush to get there when there's going to get here.
Ah,
You
that's
know
a
what I
good way
mean?
of putting it. There's going to get here.
I've never said that before. That literally just
Yeah.
came to me as I was sitting there.
That's a
So
good one.
it is. It's just if you sit there, it will arrive and it will meet you, and you can meet it in this wonderful, inquisitive, curious exploration. And in there, there's just heart and soul and love and all those wonderful things. But if you're rushing to get there, then you're going to be trying to analyze it, and you can be thinking and lots of neuroses, lots of noise in your head, and very busy.
Well, we
So
create we create an idea of how the next moment's going to be up here. So if I'm rushing something, I'm rushing to this place, and now I'm creating a mental model of what it's going to be like when I'm at that place. I'm going to see these three people in this context, and you play it out and all that, and then you really rob yourself of just the present moment as that moment arrives, or as it arrives to you. Because otherwise you've just got all these ideas. And when we create a mental model as well, then I guess we create more preference around how that's meant to go. And if that doesn't meet our parameters, and there's about 10 billion different factors going into each moment to change how it is. So if it doesn't meet our expectation, then we'll be disappointed, we'll be disturbed emotionally.
Well, what we're gonna do is create a preferred reality, a reality that we desire, and then when, as you said, the 10 billion different things that are outside of our control are going to influence the actual and create the actual reality. When that is different to the preferred reality, that's so ultimately we've formed an attachment, a desire, and when that desire is unfulfilled, ah, and it's so self-made. It's just this isn't good. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. Who the fuck are you to try and decide what everything is going to be? Like,
Yeah, like how
honestly,
else
it's
someone else is meant to be, how the weather's meant to be, how we're meant to get what we want all the time and never get what we don't want. All of it's, I guess, made out of this place of just wanting a life of ease and no challenge, no, just disturbance inside.
clients have been bringing the most wonderful ego stories this week. They're just fascinating, and one of them in particular was she took on the responsibility for everyone's happiness in the workplace. Um, and I'm like, can you hear that? Can you hear the ego going, right? I'm going to look after it. I'm going to create this psychological safe workspace. The boss was sending mixed communication or something, in her opinion, and she literally said, I wanted her to admit that she was wrong. I was like, oh, wow, really? You're there? Um, and we had this great discussion about, imagine if you, on one hand, you're trying to create this psychological safe workspace, but you're for everyone but the boss. So it's still, you know, the boss is on the outer. But even if you manage to achieve it, everyone would become sludges. Everyone would become docile. Everyone would be. You're doing people a disservice. The whole notion of this pure utopian, psychologically safe workspace couldn't be further from
Reality.
well, what's necessary. We need that resistance. We need adversity. We need contrast. We need diversity. We need all of these things. It's just all you're trying to do is placate the ego by creating a psychologically safe workplace. People don't have to turn up and have any self agency or self accountability. And I think it's deeply unhealthy.
Of
So there's
course
a
it is.
line. You don't want people walking around going, "Oh, you're fucking this, you're fucking that." But there's limits.
It's the idea that's, quite prevalent that of pretty much nerfing reality for people. And it's like,
Doing what?
if nerfing it, nerfing it
What's
means
that?
like nerfing's like that soft foam kind of padding.
Yeah, yeah,
And so
yeah.
it's like you put and so essentially you don't want anybody to get hurt. And we're talking about feelings in this context, not like bumping a knee. And so you call it nerfing reality. So as soon as, and this is the woke community, which is once again, this show's
Yeah.
piss take on that word. It's like, if someone or something emotionally disturbs me, then it's on that thing to stop.
They
Okay.
made me
Because
feel this way.
they made me feel this way. I'm offended. I'm entitled to not feel offended. So that now needs to stop. And yeah, that's the appropriate reaction that you're having. And this is so much trouble here because once again, we're not learning. If you get human beings in groups, there's going to be challenge, there's going to be disagreements, there's going to be opportunity to grow. There's going to be all of this kind of stuff. To think that it's not going to be that way is just living in a absolute fantasy. And then what happens and what happens now is all of these different groups form where we try and hang around people who only support us and never offend us, which creates further division then between the groups, and these groups get big enough where they fracture, and it's not good for the overall connection and inclusion of us as a species.
What happened to sticks and stones will hurt my bones, but names will never hurt me. Like
We should
that's
ban.
gone out.
Sticks and stones should be banned from the earth. Then we need to get rid of all of them, put them at the
And
bottom
so
of
and
the
so should
ocean so they can't
words.
hurt
But
anyone.
but words are hurting people more than sticks and stones now. This comedian was bang on the other day. I was listening to. He goes, "You don't see kids in casts anymore. You don't see kids with a broken arm or a broken leg because they've been on a playground and they've been rough and tumbling. And I was like, fuck, that's so true. But the psychological safe workspace as well. It's going to make us docile because there's nothing to come into contact with where we have to figure out how to move through it. It's just let's placate everyone's ego, and it's yeah, just
There
it's
was
going to
a
be
story I read of one of the ancient Hindu masters, one of these, great beings
Ryan
who,
Hassan.
well, maybe in another life,
Yeah.
with
Hey,
this.
isn't it weird? Isn't it weird? Before we go to how all the gurus seem to be in India or Nepal. There's no like, oh, a guru was found in Tasmania today, in a cave in Tasmania. Like, why aren't there gurus in the Western world? And why aren't there any these days? Like, it's I don't know. It's so weird.
It's weird. I guess it's just culture. I guess, the Vedic belief system started in that part of the world. And so a lot of people started following it. And out of all those people that followed it, a few, got to, and a lot of them are bullshit as well. But some of them, obviously got to a point of being this great being. And it's been more like, I know a lot of people who've gone over and trained in those traditions, maybe American or something. And then they have the choice of, do I stay here or do I go and try and bring those teachings to a wider audience in the West? But it is interesting, yeah. But I think a lot of them are false prophets, if I'm being honest. But this one, there might have been Mayor Barber, but one of them, the disciple asked, like, you're this incredible being and you've transcended all that. Surely you could, take away all of my pain and suffering because it's so much. And they looked at the student and said, of course I could, but I never would, saying that that's the ultimate act of it's robbing someone of the experience of meeting up against the resistance that you're talking about, and in the process of moving through that resistance becoming a different person and actually learning what we need to learn. Like Ram Dass speaks about, this being a school, this earth thing, like learning to be a human, have we have certain lessons in
So
this
grist
life.
for the mill.
And so
So
it's like,
suffering
what?
is grace.
Yeah, it's like, well, we're just going to skip the class. Like the class is life, and skipping it means, we probably have to come back if you believe in reincarnation and just do it all again because we skipped the class.
And you hear people shaking their fist at God, going, "Oh, how could a God allow there to be sick children and starving people and hurricanes and war and famine and all these things?" And you just like, what do you expect? What do you? All right, let's play the role of God, and God listens to these humans and goes, "All right, fuckers, you asked for it. Here you go. No disease, no war, no famine. There's this utopian thing." God sits back and cracks a beer and just puts his feet up and says, "Let's just see how long this lasts for." And guaranteed, I reckon a month tops, people start to complain.
Absolutely. It's like how everyone, it's like I wish everyone was just like me, believe what I believed and all that, because then we could all just get along and everything. After about a week, you'd be so fucking bored, you'd want to bloody do yourself in. But like, it's that idea of the garden, right? It's like that's in the story of the Bible, Adam and Eve in the garden, and the fall from the garden's coming down to this place of judgment, of preference, of suffering and all that. And so there's this deeply embedded idea of a utopia somewhere where we don't suffer, but it's never existed in our reality. And like you said, I don't think it'd be preferable if it did.
I heard Ramdas talking about the story of a shogun, no, samurai. Well, how does he pronounce it? Samurai or something.
What's it trying to say phonetically?
I don't know. I think it's just American way of saying the Himalayas is the way we pronounce it, but they call it the Himalayas.
Yeah,
So
right.
anyway, the samurai and the monk, and the samurai is just a massive, massive warlord dude, like just breathing fire and brimstone, and just a tough dude. And there's this
Kind of like
meek
me.
little monk. Yep, and there's this meek little monk, just like me, I suppose.
Okay.
And the samurai and the monk bump into each other, and the samurai is very curious. He's like, "Monk, right, tell me show me heaven and show me hell. If you're so wise, if you're so this." And the monk looks at him and goes, "Oh, samurai." He goes, "No, you have a rusty sword. Oh, yuck. You have stinky clothes. You're a mess. You just." Yeah, why? You wouldn't even be able to grasp it. Why would I teach you anything? And the samurai gets very offended, very upset by it. He pulls his sword out and he's about to chop the monk's head off. And just as he's getting there, the monk goes, "That's hell." And the monk stops in his tracks. And he's like, "Oh," the samurai stops in his tracks. He's like, "Oh," and he realizes the monk was prepared to put his life on the line to teach this man a lesson. And he's like, "Oh my God, that's amazing." Dropped his sword and he got down and bent down and started bowing and kissed the monk's feet. And the monk said, "Now that's heaven." Showed him
The
suffering and grace.
polarities.
It's just, yeah, it's just ego getting all upset, or you surrender completely. And we have the option to learn how to let go and to keep surrendering to things as they are, not as we prefer them to be. So, which
I love that.
yeah, it was a beautiful story, and it reminded me of the other episode where we spoke about the path to heaven feels like hell, and the path to hell feels like heaven. It's a nice little linkage to that.
What's your topic for
Do you
today?
want to?
Oh
Well,
yeah, what do I want to talk about?
hey.
What was that? Are you offering me to talk about something?
Uh, I'm hesitant to, but no. How was the retreat? Did you want to speak any more of your
Yeah, I
retreat?
did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
It
please
was
do.
just such a beautiful experience. We were holidaying in Bali, but while we were there, we did a 2 day conference in Ubud at the Pyramids of Chi, which was cool. Like our logo at the Center for Healing is a pyramid. We got a
I got a
tattoo,
tattoo
okay?
in Ubud.
Ah,
It's a pro heart design because
it's got cock and balls.
my dearly departed father. It's a it's a memorial tattoo for my dad
Okay.
that died and is no longer with us.
I'm so sorry.
Uh, for my loss or for your cock and balls story?
Can you show me again? Like this is on YouTube. I swear I could see a cock and balls there, but that might be my reticular activating system. Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah, it's
a
lovely.
dragonfly. It's a dragonfly.
Oh
The
yes.
balls of the
It's one of
eyes.
those magic eye things. Now I see the dragonfly, I can't unsee it, so I've got it.
It's the balls of the eyes, and the
Yeah,
body
yeah.
is the cock, I suppose. No one's ever picked up on that. No one ever has seen
Well,
that.
you can psychoanalyze me based on that if you like, listeners. Um,
All right, so you're in Ubud
so
and you've got a pyramid scheme going.
so pyramids are shady. Pyramids our logo. It was lovely. We were in the Earth pyramid, and it was just, yeah, it was really magical. Like I love being online, and we got students all around the world, and we get on and we connect with them to a certain level. But there's just something about, getting in someone's energy field, giving them a hug, chatting, laughing, crying, all of that kind of stuff. And something that I love the most is I just watch all these people connecting with each other, and they're
Mm.
just chatting. And it was just such a good vibe. And we had a great experience. We had 2 days. We had, first day, Melissa did a talk, and then we had Eva, an Aussie who lives over in Bali, doing a talk, and then we had Kendall, who she works at the Pyramids of Chi. She did a sound healing to finish up on the first day, and she did a breathwork session to finish up on the second day. Yours truly did a talk on the second day, and we had
Who did the meditation? Who ran the meditation?
well the sound healing and the breathwork are different types of meditation.
No. So you couldn't get the Sultan of Steel there just for.
No, there was no one I know who like is into meditation and teaches it that I could think to run it.
Mm.
So if you know anyone for next year, just let me know.
I'll put my thinking cap on.
Okay. Um, and yeah, we had another lady over there, Dr. Jyoti, who she's Polish but lives in Bali as well, who does work very similarly aligned to us. So we just had a good array of speakers and everything, and just hanging out afterwards in the cafe there.
How many students
We
do
had
we have?
about 25 there.
Nice.
And that was just practitioners. And so, yeah, we've got ideas next year to make it, much bigger and better. That was the perfect number for that pyramid, though. of people to fit. And
Why do you
yeah, I
have to
just
make it bigger and better? Why can't it be enough
Oh, because that's the
size?
way I work. I just because I saw so many people go, "Oh, I wish I could come, but I've got A, B, and C, and blah blah blah." And so I feel like there's so many more members of our community because everyone like legitimately just
But if
fucking
if
loved
it's
it.
important, we'll find a way. If it's not, we'll find an
But I
excuse.
always
So
think
say,
about how can I, as an organizer of this, how can I make it more accessible to people so they can come? That's sort of where I'm coming from.
yeah, it's
So
beautiful, man.
yeah, but no, it was great. Yeah, it was interesting for me. I'm normally somewhat prepared when I'm doing a talk. I won't have notes or that, but I'll be somewhat prepared. And the day before the conference, Mel's like, "So what is your talk about?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I legitimately don't know." And
So
so,
you approached it like the podcast. You just,
uh, yeah,
it's
sort
great.
of.
Great.
So yeah, because the first day, because we had Tommy over there, so I just sort of ducked in for a couple of hours on the first day and sort of got everyone's energy because I wanted to get a feel for like what is it that they might want to hear about. And so I went from there, and yeah, it was great. So yeah, no, we had a wonderful time there. I would definitely do it. We did it like towards the end of our holiday. I'll do it at the start of the holiday. That seems like a more appropriate
Yeah,
way to do it.
get it out of the way. And
Get out of the way and then show
so,
out.
your presentation, did you just sort of get up with there with a 7 iron and just show them your swing
Yeah, I
and
went in detail about my golf game the last 2 years or so,
yeah.
and that's the main reason I brought my clubs. I'll show that.
It was I don't know if that picked up or not, but it was like I will show. It was like started rapping.
Just
So
one sec. Wait one sec. Is that what happened on that
uh,
when we interviewed?
it's getting all funky now.
What about now?
Yeah, no, the sound has really changed, but it's clear. It's not stuttery.
Right. So the sound's changed. You can hear me okay. Everything's clear.
Yeah, plug your mic back in.
Yeah, because I think this mic may have a little issue because that real weird thing it did when we interviewed the lady who did the documentary. That's happened a couple more times. All right, mic's back in.
Radio. Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, just some technical difficulties going on here because this is a new mic and it's happened a couple of times. I had a client and we were going through stuff and she's like, oh. And I'm like, what? She goes, you sounded like you were Stephen Hawking underwater getting attacked by sharks. I'm like, I love your visual
Yeah.
cortex. That's amazing. Um,
Yeah. All right. Well, you got to sort your mic out then.
yeah.
You got to stop. You got
So
to stop dropping the mic. You keep
I
damaging it.
can't. I just got to stop having mic drop moments. So all in
Yeah.
all, it was a wonderful time. I loved being able to connect with people in person, and glad that people had a great experience.
All right. Well, shout out to all the practitioners and students and David in Canada and
We had one.
oh
I'll just share this. It was just such a beautiful moment. It was on the second day, and we did this breath work session. The whole group, and it was like pretty intense. That type of breath work, and it was new to some people. But one of the people there, um, this guy, and I was sitting next to him, and sort of as we came out of it and sat up after like 45 minutes or so, like I could feel, something, energetically could happen. I sort of grabbed his hand next to me, and the way he grabbed my hand, and he sort of looked at me, and I'm like, oh, something, and then the lady's like, oh, does anyone want to share? And then he put his hand up, and it was great because at first he goes, oh, I'm going to get a bit emotional. Sorry, who am I apologizing to in this crowd? And we're like, yeah, exactly. We encourage that stuff. And he'd been in a bit of a bad spot because a couple of weeks before, he must have been a first responder, had been at a really bad car crash, and a young person had died in his arms, and he had been struggling, since then, being able to process it and work through it and that kind of thing. And he said during that session, during the breath work at the end, that kind of being, whoever that was, came to him to sort of say goodbye, and they did all I could, and it's okay. And like, he's
wow.
got tears, I've got tears, like half the room have all got tears, and it was just a really magical moment, and one that I'm really glad he was able to have.
Beautiful. And that can only happen. I think it's more likely to happen when you're in person and you've got that connection and
I
all
agree.
that. Energy's there. Um, so topic of the day, although we're sort of three-quarters of the way through it,
That's
as
right.
per usual. There's a lot of segues, but I'll let them go. Attributes to cultivate. It sort of links into a lot of what we've been talking about, and personal attributes within ourselves that we can cultivate. So, got a list of them here.
You've got a
First one off
list.
the first
And,
cab off
and
the.
are these attributes that you think are beneficial that we cultivate as a human?
I think the attributes to help us navigate life and the world and feel more at peace and ease and happy within that experience.
All right, let's go. What's the first one?
Golf.
And that's
Yeah,
it. Yeah, good
yep.
list.
That's
That's a
that's all
that's
I had.
that's pretty much the best list. Okay, great.
That's all I had. That's so that's us. Thank you for listening, guys.
We'll see
And
you all next week.
patience. Patience is the first.
Yeah, what's the second one? I can't wait. What's the second one? The second one?
What you want me to dive into them a little bit, or
No,
you
because you
just want
said
to?
patience. It's
Yes,
on bit
patience.
funny. Oh,
Oh,
you got it.
sorry.
Oh, you got it. Sorry.
I was too busy looking at your fashionable hat.
Okay.
I got caught. I got caught up.
Patience. Okay, well, that ties
Mm,
into exactly what you were talking about at the start of the show.
yeah. So the definition of patience, and this is the thing. A lot of people want to be happy. A lot of people think I should be patient. A lot of people can grasp the concepts, but they don't really understand what they are. So very difficult to become what you don't really understand. So the definition of patience, and as you listen to this, just try and associate it with some part of your life, your kids, your golf game, your job, traffic, whatever. So patience is the capacity. So we're trying to create or cultivate these attributes to increase our capacity. So the capacity to accept or tolerate, delay, suffering, or problems without becoming annoyed or anxious. So to accept the life happening without getting bent out of shape and pissed off about it.
Yep, that sounds like an apt definition. I think that a lot of us want to be somewhere as a human being in our life in probably a shorter time than it takes. Um, and I think one thing I have to do with clients, and I think I'd like to hear your thoughts as well, is sometimes just a reminder that like how far they've come and that they're on the right track. Because I guess we make this idea in our mind of this, I know, this ideal place that we want to be, and we're going to be, free of all these things. But we often forget that how far we've come in the last 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, and that kind of thing. So, changing ourselves does take time. It's not easy. We're unwinding decades of shit normally.
Yeah. And it's snakes and ladders. It's sort of people think it's this linear trajectory from point A to point B, but it's up, down, high, low, back and forward. So being patient, it's having those parameters of acceptance really wide and just allowing yourself to be human, allowing yourself to have a bad day where you're grumpy or whatever because you haven't slept well or it's just patience isn't just waiting, it's what you do while you wait. It's once again, it's not passive. Um, it's a very active thing because you got to keep letting go, you got to keep surrendering, you got to keep observing and being very present in patience. So I've got your favorite spirit angel cards here.
Oh, yep, yeah, angel cards. Yep, okay.
Yeah, yeah, that you love. So
Can you tune into my
patient.
energy before you pick one for me? Oh, you
Yeah, I
got
did.
one.
Yeah,
Okay.
I really
How
tuned
did it
the
feel?
energy
How's my
right up.
energy?
Yeah, it was ramped right up. At the end of the way is freedom. Until then, patience.
End of the way is freedom. Okay.
At the
Beautiful.
end of the way is freedom. Until then, patience. That's from this bloke called Bud Ha or something. Bud Ha. Bud, Buddha, Buddha, or something.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
Patience is a fine and noble quality. It implies that everything is possible in the timelessness of space and being, and a deep knowingness reminds you that nothing can fail you but your own impatience.
Hmm.
So if there's suffering, and we get anxious. Anxious is suffering. So we're going into suffering because of suffering. So we're just compounding the suffering. We're actually starting to manifest and create more of exactly what we don't want. Where if we use patience and accept that something is unpleasant or whatever, but we accept that it's there and we're at peace with it being unpleasant, then we're going to move through it a whole lot quicker.
Yeah, yeah. Like one of the ultimate forms of suffering is wanting to be somewhere else than where we are. And that's a battle that you're not going to win because we are where we are. And until we fully accept and acknowledge that, doesn't mean that we don't go somewhere else. It just means that we completely accept where we are instead of saying, oh, I'm here. I shouldn't be here. I should be at this next thing or this different place. We were just beating ourselves over the head at that point.
But apparently, there will come here sooner or
Yeah,
later.
that's
So,
one of your best. That came from somewhere else. That came from one of your archangels that did that quote.
yeah, came from deep within the Akashic records.
Yeah.
That was 32 lifetimes ago, that one.
Was it? Let's go back a
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. Trust. Trust is
In?
an attribute. Well, that's not in anything. So this is the kicker.
Oh.
Trust in it's just trusting that everything is going to happen as it needs to happen.
Hmm.
And you can't look at it in a binary way. You can't just trust that everything's going to be okay, or trust in them that they're going to look after you, or trust that you got to trust that there's going to be some shit coming along. You got to trust that there's going to be amazing days. You're going to trust that there's going to be traffic jams. You got to trust that your house will get broken into and stuff will get stolen. It's just this absolute trust that it's all happening exactly as it needs to happen.
And
And
trusting that we'll be okay no matter what happens. No?
no, because that is passive. Trusting I'll be okay. There's no action in that. You've got to trust that it's all going to come to you as you need it to arrive, but then you need to turn up and meet it and do the work when it
Hmm.
arrives.
Can I be
Yeah.
okay doing the work?
You can be okay doing the work, but you've got to be there to cultivate that within yourself.
Yes. Okay. All right.
You're not
Trust.
just going to be okay. It's like time heals all wounds. It doesn't. We've spoken about this before. Wounds can fester over time if
But
they're
I
not
think
attended
if
to.
a shitty situation presents itself, then I could be like, oh, this is a shitty situation, and I'm okay with that. But then I can also deal with it from that place of being not okay, like I'm going to let it keep happening, but like
Who determines
I'm
whether it's a shitty situation or not?
I don't know if someone walks in here and starts kicking me in the dick for 5 minutes, then I'll determine that's probably a shitty situation and want them to stop
They
kicking me in
won't.
the
They'll
dick.
determine if I'm the kicker. I'll determine that's an awesome
Surely
situation.
you're getting tired after 5 minutes. Just change
Not if it's
legs.
kicking. Not if it's kicking you in the dick. I could go at that all day. So this is the thing. The situations aren't shitty or not shitty. That's looking at it through that binary black and white lens. And things just are. It's what determines whether they're shitty or not is your preference or your beliefs or your values or your biases. So trust that things just are, and every cloud has a silver lining, and the darker the cloud,
What's
the
the silver
brighter the
lining of me
silver
getting kicked
lining.
in the dick for 5 minutes?
Well, there's no more Hassan children running around. The world's a better place.
That's not going to happen anyway.
Well, you slow down
Start
and you have
kicking
to go to
myself in the dick.
hospital, and you go to hospital and you have to just hang out and chill out in hospital for a couple of days and do
Oh,
nothing.
yeah.
Yeah,
This sounds all right, actually.
yeah, it might be a benefit to you. So that's a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. There's no value in this as a fixed mindset. There is some growth and a lesson here. That's a growth mindset. So
All right. What's
yeah,
your next one? That was a bit fluffy, that one for me.
how can I unfluff it for you? I don't know. It's hard. Trust. It can't just trust in everything's going to be okay. You got to trust that it's all going to turn up.
I didn't say everything's going to be okay. Just that trusting that I'll be okay, and then I'm able to
Well,
uh,
you are going to
accept
be
whatever
okay.
happens.
You are going to be okay, but okay may be different to what you prefer. Okay is not just going to be happy. That's what a lot of people want. Okay to be. I want
No,
to be
no,
okay.
no. I accept that. No, okay just means I'm accepting of the reality that I'm in.
Yeah.
And if it's not, and I think we can. This is where I get a bit funny around these philosophies and spiritual concepts and reality. It's like we still need to deem something, I don't know if shitty is the right word, but to have some sort of preference, because otherwise we've run the risk of, like fawning and staying in an abusive relationship, or staying in a job that's absolutely terrible for us. But it's like, no, I don't want to have preference. I've got to just accept everything as it happens.
Well, I guess I transcend preference with asking, is it healthy and is it sustainable? And if it's
Okay.
not healthy and it's not sustainable, then that's
But that's a
a
preference.
comfort. That's a comfort. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's a preference for things to. Well, it's not a personal. I don't think it's a personal preference. It's just
But you were making a
deep down.
judgment. You're making a
Yeah, deep
judgment.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's been
So
defluffed. I'm happy with that.
okay, good. Um, Compassion.
You're like a defluffer, the opposite to a fluffer.
It'd be a weird sort of porno,
That'd be
wouldn't
a weird one. Like at the end, like what do you
it?
do?
Mate, I've got to make you soft. Sorry, mate.
The guys who've taken too much Viagra and can't get it down afterwards.
Call in the D fluffer. That's the
They're
D fluffer.
pouring ice over it or something.
Sorry, David. I told you it goes into the gutter real quick. Um, Compassion. You go from D fluffing to compassion. Our range is hilarious.
Compassionate action.
Uh, Compassion that you can't go home with this hard on.
It's all going to be
Um,
okay. Yeah, compassion. A really good attribute. Okay. What about this though? I
well,
think what with compassion, tell me your experience. I find that people tend to have compassion up until a point. It's like, can you have compassion for your dogs? Everyone's like, yeah, I love my dog. I've got compassion for them. Can you have compassion for your good friend? It's like, absolutely, I want the best for them. Cool. Can you have compassion for yourself? No. Or maybe yes, but my actions are very, very different. Can you have compassion for someone that you don't like and has a different set of belief systems? No, I can't do that. It's very interesting. We all have a line there.
I tell the story of someone breaking here and stealing artwork and everything, and I felt a deep sense of compassion for these people.
Hmm.
I wondered, I wonder what kind of life they're living. Wonder what they've got going on to feel the need to break into somewhere to steal some artwork, and that was available to me because my ego didn't turn up in that moment and bet I can't believe they did this to me. And so compassion is only truly accessible when you're not in the way of it.
Yeah. I used to do
When
this.
the ego is not in the way.
I used to do an exercise with clients where we'd test the limits, and we'd do the Buddhist metta prayer. So the metta prayer goes, may all beings be peaceful, may all beings be happy, may all beings be safe, may all beings awaken to the true light of the nature. Sorry, may all beings awaken to the light of their true nature, may all beings be free. And I would do that with, these more easier things to have compassion to. And it was so interesting because you get to one point. I remember there was one client he had, I used to be a friend, but they had a really bad business deal and falling out and everything. And he would start to do the meta prayer, with holding him in his mind. And he'd go, male beings, you know what? Fuck him. No. And so we'd see, it's like, okay, we see where the line is. We see where we're stuck at that point. And I had
Totally
so many
stuck.
people, so many clients, I'd get to them. So hold an image of yourself in your mind, or imagine you're looking at yourself in the mirror and read the meta prayer. And people would just break down crying because they would realize how uncompassionate they are with themselves on a day-to-day basis.
In
We hold ourselves to a
relationships,
standard that we would never hold other people to.
yeah, yeah, and that's human nature. So having awareness around that, cultivating awareness is really important. Awareness for us is the first step to change. It's not a problem until we can identify that it's a problem, that something's not functioning properly or something's unhealthy. So, but it's going to be that gentle awareness. Awareness can be a double-edged sword. People can be very critical in their awareness of things. I'm aware that you're a fucking idiot, and okay, I'm not sure you're wheeling that awareness really well there. It's that gentle awareness, just that, as I said before, that noticing, that observing objectively without having judgment involved in it, which
And
is
you spoke
really
about
challenging.
the snakes and ladders thing, and I find it's when people really grasp that awareness, they tend to feel like they've gone down a snake, they've gone backwards, simply because now we're becoming more aware of the goings on inside of us, and we
I
realize
can
that
summarize that.
go.
A
How do you
client, a
summarize?
client summarized that really well. He turned up to a session like week 6 or something. I said, "How you going?" He goes, "I'm more fucked now than when I started." And then he started laughing and he said, "I'm not really. I just have much more awareness of how much
It
shit
but
I'm
it
in."
but it seems that way, you know. It's because
It
we
does,
haven't
yeah.
we haven't looked at the weeds. Doesn't mean the weeds aren't there. They're just showing up in unconscious behaviors. Now we look at the weeds and go, "Oh, how the bloody hell I'm surrounded by weeds," and we realize, "Oh my God, I'm so narcissistic in this relationship. I'm so people pleasing and needy in this relationship. Oh, look, I'm trying to get love here. Look, I'm trying to manipulate here. Look how much I talk shit about myself inside my own head." And we're sort of had all this stuff thrown in our face. So it can feel that way, but it's definitely not.
But it's not interesting. All of those things you said, you can use that destructively through judging, criticizing, condemning yourself, or you can operate on this literal place where that is what I'm doing, and I'm not going to apply meaning to that. It's just factual, and now I'm meeting it there in a very neutral space, and now I can do the work with it because I'm not. I don't have an aversion to it. I don't think I should or shouldn't be like this. It's just that's that gentle awareness. I am needy in this relationship. In the discovery session, we show clients in the way that they're immature, and not one person has taken offense to that because I haven't. There's been absolutely zero judgment in it. It's just revealing
Do they
that
listen
we
to this
all.
podcast and go, hang on a minute, pot calling the kettle black?
Are you sure you're the right person to be teaching me? Um,
Lived
and
experience
and there's
practitioner.
and there's this beautiful moment where we have a laugh about it and go and they're like sitting there and their ego is literally squirming, going because all we're doing up is holding up a mirror, and there's no judgment in that at all. So you can't be compassionate if the ego is turning up and buying into what they're selling. It's this surface level notion. It's just fraught with danger. You got to look beyond what people are projecting. I didn't just look at what they did to me when people broke in here and stole up. I looked beyond what they were doing and met them there. And when you meet people there, I had a client. So I listened to the podcast, and when you say your heart breaks a lot, Nick. Why does your heart break? What do you mean by that? And I'm like, great question. I've never been asked that before. And my understanding is my heart is filled with love. So when I hear uh, my heart breaks for these people who need to steal things to improve their life. It doesn't mean I'm heartbroken in that love sense. It means that um, I'm just feeling a deep sense of compassion and empathy towards these people
There's
because
it's like a certain tone of the heart. You know, the heart has these various tones, I think, that we experience and we label them, good or bad, or I'm in love, or, blah, blah, blah. And so what happens when we do feel a certain tone and people call that, oh, I was hurt, and then they, block it off, to protect themselves. But I think, and I'm the same, it's like you hear something, you see something, and it's like you let your heart break because that's an appropriate response. We had, someone, it's a weird year for me, last 6 months, like 4 people I know have just passed away around the age of 40. Like I didn't expect this to happen when I was like 60 or 70, but it happened this week. And it still is, I can still feel it. It's literally like just this heartbreaking because it's really sad, and that's an appropriate response. And then the heart, and what I try and do is, not put any walls up then. Like the heart's meant to hurt in certain situations, and that's perfectly okay.
Ram Dass on his puja board, on his worshipping place where he went to worship, put a photo of George Bush up there. And everyone's like, why do you worship children? He's like, he's my teacher. He's showing me where that line of compassion is. And I love Maharaji and I love Jesus and I love Buddha and I love all of these deities and gods. But then George Bush in the middle of them all is like, that's the one that's really revealing where my stuff
Yeah,
is.
that's the
And
teacher because the other ones are
yeah,
easy.
yeah. And so, modern day sort of Donald Trump and I don't like or dislike Donald Trump. I think I observe that he has narcissistic behavior and he's very childlike in his approach. I observe him objectively, but I feel very compassionate towards this man because I feel and see that he's in a lot of suffering and he's projecting that suffering. And people are like, I can't believe you feel for that man. Like what a sentence. I can't believe you can feel sorry for him. I'm like, well, I'm not
Mm.
feeling sorry. I don't have sympathy. I'm feeling love for another human being.
Oh, it's but
That's
those same
so
people. As soon as you take that attitude to an extreme, you get someone on the roof trying to shoot him and kill him in front of people. It's like that's the extreme end of not having compassion for other human beings. And I think
yeah.
that's far more dangerous than going, well, this human being with this certain set of qualities based on his conditioning growing up, that shouldn't be and shouldn't exist, and they don't deserve understanding.
I still remember it's imprinted in my mind this video of this lady going to court to hear the sentencing of someone who killed her son in a gang sort of incident. And the judge sentenced him to life and blah, blah, blah. And as he's walking out, the mum's standing there crying. She goes, I hope you find peace. Hope you find your way. And this big badass gangster dude just broke down and he couldn't handle the love that this woman was giving him. And I was bawling my eyes out. I'm going, fuck, what an act, what a goddess or god or what a just
There's
amazing.
there's a lady, I can't remember her name, and I did a video on it years ago. It'll be on our Center for Healing page, but I should try and find it. But yeah, I read the story. I can't remember her name, but similar situation. And this lady had her son killed. The guy who did it went to jail. And she ended up obviously in a really dark place, like grief, sadness, anger, on meds, developed this skin condition, which they're saying she'll have the rest of her life, like a autoimmune response, this horrible,
Mm.
skin condition. And then one morning when she was sort of on the verge of wanting to end her life, she's like, there's got to be a different way. And she reached out, she wrote a letter to the person who killed her son. They wrote back and she ended up going to visit him at prison. And she did that regularly. And over time, her grief left, and all of a sudden, her skin condition cleared up, and she ended up getting him out of prison, like on good behavior and stuff. And then she started a charity to help people, who'd lost their kids in violence and all this kind of thing. And this guy helped her as well. And it's like you said about that other woman being like a god. It's like, man, that the amount it goes against what our human conditioning is to do something like that,
Mm.
but
But
we've always got a different choice.
I'm hearing there are very bright silver linings from a very dark cloud.
Yeah, but she wasn't kicked in the nuts for 5 minutes. I'm just imagining me just trying to accept and meditate while you're just kicking me in the dick, just repeatedly.
It shows what is available. No, you don't have to do it. I'm not saying you should do it, but it's what's available if you want to learn the art of it. It's transcending. It's moving beyond all that conditioning and all of that human nature and all of that ego. And it's what lies behind that is just such a deeply connected, beautiful place. And there's still suffering. There's still a lot of suffering. It doesn't you're not looking at the world through rose-colored glasses or anything. It's you're feeling it very deeply, but it's got a different quality to it. It's got a different tone to it, I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah, and I think I love that term, what's available. And whenever I know for me, whenever I have those moments of just clarity and feeling connected to everyone and everything and all that, I always have the same thought. And it's like, oh, this is always available. It's like right next, it's like right behind me or next to me, but
Yeah.
I seem to just forget that it's there and get lost in the minutiae of being a human.
Not minutia. Um, I had this really interesting experience on Saturday. Em went away for the weekend, so it was just me at home with the doggos. And on Friday night, they were laying in the bed, and I heard Polly um, whimper, but it wasn't she. So she tries to talk, and she got this meh, 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 meh. That's her way of trying to communicate. But this was different. This was it was a yelping sort of noise, and she wasn't really doing much. I'm like, oh, that's really odd. Anyway, it happened in the morning as well. I could see she was in a lot of pain. And so I've got her on the bed and we're having this cuddle, and I just started bawling my eyes out. And I booked her into to go to the vet in the morning. And the weirdest thing happened. It got away from me. And this hasn't happened for a while, but I believed that she wasn't going to come home from the vet. And so, and I heard myself, I believe she's going to die. And, and, or no, I said, I feel like she's going to die. And then, no, I don't feel like she's going to die. I believe that she's going to die. And then I feel very fucking sad about that. So it was an interesting distinction there. Similar to a client the other day said, oh, this person hurt my feelings. I'm like, no, they can't hurt your feelings. Your feelings show you that you've been hurt. But anyway, it's a side note. And so I'm laying there bawling, and I couldn't stop crying. I was taken for a walk out on the golf course, and I'm just bumping into people. I'm morning. I'm like, morning, morning, beautiful day, isn't it? It's just like, yeah, right. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. And I knew what was happening on some level. I was observing it happening, but I was so deep, I couldn't really change it. So I just allowed it to pass through me. And I'm sitting in the vet clinic. I'm sitting on the floor with Polly, and I'm crying my eyes out. And this vet's like, she's okay. She's just arthritis and old age with aches and pains. But I'm just going to give her some painkiller treatment stuff, and she'll be fine, mate. And these fatty, lumpy bits that you've been feeling, they're just fatty, lumpy bits. I've tested them; that it's not cancer. And I'd completely gone to the worst case scenario, and was just experiencing deeply unnecessary suffering, grief before needing to grieve. But it was the most interesting experience. I was fascinated with the whole experience because I'm like, I've imagined she's already died and I've got all this love and it's got nowhere to go. But it has. It's still A, she's still here. But even if she wasn't there, B, my love could still go to out there to the universe. So it was fucking wacky, man.
Do you think it could have been like obviously it can be to a degree playing out the worst case scenario and then getting emotionally disturbed by that? Could it also be like a way of starting the grieving process
I
early?
I consider that great question and important question, but no, in this case it wasn't. In this case, it was deeply irrational. It was
Yeah, okay.
yeah, it was yeah, because a lot of people start the grieving process before
Yeah, I had a
um
little bit with Disco Model as he was getting older and getting a bit sick. I remember I was doing that, and a great example was Melissa and her father because he was um, had Alzheimer's and had a whole bunch of stuff, but he was
sounds like a great
had
example.
had deteriorated, so much that barely recognizable, especially from when she was younger and everything.
Mm,
And yes, she would have these moments of just deep grief, whilst he was still alive. And I was sort of watching, and I'm like, oh wow, I think she's going through the grieving process now.
mm,
And then when he actually did physically pass away, like there was grief and sadness, but she even said, she goes, I feel like I've done it already.
yeah,
And I'm like, yeah, that's
yeah,
what I've watched as well.
yeah.
Is
And
that
you had that
happening?
with disco as well, did you?
It was interesting with this. I had that a couple of times as he got older, but I was still, I think, grieving a bit, but also in a state of non-acceptance. Like as soon as anyone would bring up, like, so how old, do those dogs eat? I'm like, no, I'm not ready. Just don't talk about it.
Two. He's only two.
Yeah,
He's only
yeah.
two.
Yeah, he's too, all right.
I
And
was laying there with Polly. I was laying there with
yeah,
Polly going, "It's all right, you can go. It's all right, thank
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Thank you for
yeah,
everything, you can go." Like, once again, I'd convinced myself that she
yeah.
wasn't coming home. That's why it was
Okay.
all unnecessary.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Like,
that sounds unnecessary. Yeah,
completely to the worst case scenario. So,
yeah,
M came home for a weekend. How was your weekend? I'm like, yeah, good. Yeah, no, it's
yeah.
great. Yeah, it's been the doggo's taken out.
All the neighbors are like, is Nick all right? It's crying on the golf course.
There's a cat team out the front.
Oh, very funny. Very funny.
So very quickly, other attributes to
Yeah.
cultivate: compassion, understanding. Understanding is the cornerstone to love. You can't understand until you sit in that space, observing objectively. Discipline. A lot of talk with clients lately about being
Yeah.
consistent. Consistency is key, man. It's like
I
we're
was
repeatedly
going to say
doing.
that at first when you said you had a list, I'm like, if discipline's not on there, I'm going to bring it up. But I'm glad it's on the list. It's important.
Yeah, yeah, no. Generosity. So many people are living in this sense of deficiency and hoarding, money. They're hoarding clothes. They're hoarding food and toilet paper. So just try and give something every day just to break that deficiency cycle. And lightness, like just being light. Take life seriously, but don't do it seriously.
Mm.
It's important, yeah, but we have a choice. It's available again to us to be playful and light with this, or we can take it very, this has happened, that happened, and this means that, and that means this, and yeah, it's just to have some fun with it. It's a
What a
dance, it's
wonderful
a
list.
game.
But what's the list again? So go from the top. Let's go from the top.
Patience,
Patience,
trust,
trust,
compassion for self and others, understanding, discipline slash consistency, lightness,
6,
joy, generosity.
7. Generosity.
Yep, seven.
Beautiful.
Seven.
It's a wonderful, wonderful list. Wonderful attributes to have as a human being and to
But
embody as we
they
move
don't
through it.
just come. They don't just happen. They're doing some people. Some people are naturally more inclined to some of them or others. But in general, they are things that we do need to cultivate. And we train the body. We're teaching people Myndfit to train the mind, and part of that mind's training is heart training. We're training the heart to stay open, training the heart to be filled with love and compassion for every person on the planet and everything.
I love it. Love it, Nico. Beautiful. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you,
man.
everyone, for tuning in. And we will see you all on the next one.
Take care.